me go back to the letter M. It'd be a little bit easier for me. And the confusion is when I look at the letter M, I don't see that it's just merely labeled by my mind. It's a fabrication of me and society to agree that this arrangement of lines is, we can call this a letter M, and we can use it when we spell the word mom or Mary or whatever it might be. And it's useful for us when we're in our language. But if we look where on those four lines, well, where is the M? If it exists as it appears, which I mean, it looks like there's an M speaking to us, like it's not labeled by our mind, but there's actually an M there. You know, it appears like that to us. I mean, everything appears like that to us. But we take. We're going to investigate to see if it ultimately exists. I don't want to use the word inherent because it gets confused with another part of this. But if we think that it ultimately exists, means it exists from its own side without anything else. I mean, there's nothing had to be done by its own power. It's an M. There's nothing from my side or your side that has anything to do with that. You know, if there's an M there from its side. And if we do this ultimate examination, ultimate reality examination, we're still looking for, well, if it's there, it has to be findable. You know? And so, well, where is it? Is it on this line? Or is it on this line? Well, that's just a line. That's not an M. This is just a line. That's not an M. This is just a line. That's not an M. And this is just a line and not an M. We can take the four lines in that configuration and turn it upside down, and suddenly it's not an M. It's a W. You know, well, where did that truly existing M come from? Where did it go? And all we did was turn it over. If it truly existed as an M, I mean, from its side, when we turn it over, it would still be an M, but it's not. It appears as a W now, with another label on the same configuration, only turned over. So the confusion is that we're believing that M is not dependent on anything else. Its side, there's an M there, and nobody had anything to do with it. Magically, this M appeared from nowhere, and it's an M, and we believe it that way, not recognizing the fact that it's unfindable. You know, we can have any of those lines. We can take those four lines in that arrangement, and we can't find the M. You know, the M is a mere projection of our mind, and that's completely fine. I mean, that's how the M exists. You know, it functions, it works. We'd be lost without it. You know, it's really helpful to have the letter M, but it's a projection of our minds because we can take those four lines and assign this value or label to it because it's useful for us that way, so we can do the alphabet and, you know, do all this writing and reading and things. But like I say, the mistake we make is believing that it's there rather than realizing it's just a projection of our mind. You know, I mean, there is an M there, but it exists by being merely labeled. It doesn't exist speaking from its own side. So when we take these five aggregates that are our psychophysical body, and we just talk about, take the four mental and just say let's just say that's mind, and the body is the form. We do the same thing with it. This body comes, like I say, from mom and dad. If the body had this true existence, not dependent on anything, it wouldn't need parts. But it depends on parts. It would be permanent, because if it's impermanent, that means something changes in it, or it changes. And so if it's truly existent, then it would be immune to change. It would have to stay permanent. So far, so good? Okay. But that's not how it appears to us. This body feels like it's me. This is me. It's not, it feels like it's permanent, even though if we really stop to think about it, that's an easy one to overcome. It feels like it came, nothing had to happen. Like this body feels like it's this sense of I. Feels like it's not, it feels like it's independent of this body-mind combination. It doesn't feel like it's just merely labeled. It feels like there's an I. It's my body, my mind. There's an I that owns all this. There's an I that experiences this. There's a somewhere that feels like there's an I here. It's really natural for us to feel that way. But when we go looking for it in this senior moment here, what way we're looking for it? Aha! But ultimate thing. We can't find it. If it's the body, then this body should be permanent. It should be without parts. It shouldn't need anything else for it to come into being. I mean, if this is this truly existent I, this independent thing, it should be findable in the body, but it's not. This body it's almost ephemeral. I mean, it depends on mom and dad. It depends on the food and all the care, all these things through our life that brought it to this point. I mean, if any of those things is missing, we die, and then we're done. If it's constantly changing, I mean, our hair grows, our nails grow. We can look at that on almost a momentary basis, but in reality, from moment to moment, it's always changing. It never, for even the shortest instant of time, is ever the same, because it's always changing. It has parts, like this. So then if we go to the mental part, so if we say, it's obvious not the body, it surely must be the mind. The I can be found there. And so we do the same investigation. Is it permanent? I mean, just at a moment, our mind changes, goes from happy to sad, loving to anger. This takes that much time to change. So it's impermanent. It's constantly changing. It doesn't have parts. It has, like I said, we said earlier, it has yesterday's memories and experiences, and now it's got today's. And so there's parts of this. So there's nothing coming through like that. And then, when we talk about, where does it come from? What are its causes? It's like, it's this investigation about what is the nature of mind. And this is one that, all this requires a lot of meditation and really careful meditation, but the idea that this moment of mind came from the previous moment of awareness, which came from the previous moment, which came from the previous moment. It's like the body is all physical, and the mind has got no color, no shape. And so the idea that something physical could create something that's non-physical is said to be not possible. This is something requires a lot of investigation to figure that out, or to come to realize that, or to believe that way. So the thing is, we as on this body and mind, which are this combination, which is constantly evolving every moment. There's this thing called subtle change, where the mind is changing instantaneously. They say that there's this arising, abiding, and disintegration all happening in the very same instant. Like there's nothing that stays like this. And there's one of Nagarjuna's sayings which says that whatever arises in dependence on another is not that thing itself, nor is it something else. There is no break. There is no permanence. So it's like you're looking at this body-mind combination, or looking at the river. When we look at it, it arises from the previous piece of river. It comes to the waters coming downstream like that. But there's no break. It's continuous, but there's nothing permanent we see there. And so this physical body-mind is like that. It's similar to that. And what we believe, though, what appears to us is there's this concrete I, that's not merely labeled, it's not impermanent, it's not partless, it's not without cause. It's not with cause. Anyway, so, and because we believe that's concrete, we say, this is me, I like this, I don't like that. I'm a, what? Well, some of the things we get in, I'm a white person, there's a dark person, I'm cool, they're not. Or this person's superior to me, I'm less. And we have all these ideas about who we are and what we are. And we experience the world and everything through that veil of ignorance that believes that I am this. This is who I am. And I can't change. I'm an angry person, so don't bother. This patient's not going to do any good here. Whatever it might be, we buy into this concept of this is who I am. I'm permanent, and like this. And like I said, we interpret all this phenomena which exists in the same way as being lacking inherent existence through that veil of ignorance. When in reality, our minds and every phenomenon that exists are exactly the same nature, completely empty of existing from their own sides. It's not to say that they don't exist, because they do, but they don't exist like they appear to us. And it's that lack of recognition of reality that creates all of our problems. Because when we believe this is concrete, we have this idea of who we are and what we need for happiness, and what we don't want to be unhappy. Then we get into fame, fortune, pleasure, and praise, and their opposites. We start defining this truly existent I by what it needs, like that, by not recognizing the reality. And there's like this is all conceptual, like talking like this with these words and my poor understanding of things, it's just conceptual. And all it does is give us, it could give us like a representation, a conceptual idea of who this is, or what that is. And the only way to actually realize it is to be able to see it without the concepts. Be able to get it, is to see it in our meditation, which is single-pointed meditation, that is completely taking away all the possibilities of what the true existence of that could be, and staring at single-pointedly what's left, which is the emptiness of it. It doesn't exist like it appears. In emptiness, nothing exists, but everything exists conventionally. And this convention is dependent arising. Everything comes from causes and conditions and being labeled. I hope that's helpful because I'm way over my head. Is it helpful at all? Oh, I mean, the thing is that, I've been meditating on this for 45 years. And, you get closer to it. You can, by really working hard, you can get closer to it. But it's not until you can have that direct experience of it with no conceptual, there's no thinking. It appears to us exactly like it is. Then we have this realization, but it has to be repeated over and over again. It's not like at the session suddenly, aha, I got it. It takes lifetimes of meditating over and over and having, because we've got this, since time without beginning, the habit of seeing things exactly the wrong way. And suddenly we're getting this glimpse of how things exist or don't exist, and to repeat that over and over and over again. And this is when we talk about the 10 bhumis and the Buddhist, Chanakirti is talking about, and Madhyamaka Avatara, he's talking about progression through the 10 bhumis. It's this refinement of this realization that progresses through there, and and it's done through realizing the emptiness of the 6 perfections, the generosity. Anyway, there's this very vast and profound way of explaining all this, but to know that it's a long, slow thing that we have to continually work at. And what's helpful is when we go craziest, when we become obsessed by something, either some object we just can't be without, or some anxiety or fear or something that's really exaggerated in our mental situation. It gives us a really easy target to say, I'm making this up. I don't have to be anxious about this. I'm making up all of this stuff. And it's really helpful. Because in the craziest moments, to have something, the teachings will say, like when anger comes, they say it's a really easy time to recognize that. But it's only momentary. And from what I've found in my retreat, is that loneliness is the very best, because it doesn't disappear. When the feeling of loneliness of being alone or isolated comes, it's there. I can do something to distract myself, but it's still here. And so I can sit and meditate on it till it just certainly disappears. But it gives you a target that's more stable. Whereas with anger or these other emotions, they're much more impermanent. They disappear more quickly. Like the anger. Plus it's really hard to meditate on anger when you're angry. I don't have time for this. So, but anyway, from my experience of being this time on retreat, the loneliness is really, really, really valuable, because you can see I'm doing the exact same thing the day I did yesterday. Yesterday I wasn't lonely. Today I'm lonely. What the hell's going on here? It's just I'm making this whole thing up. It's all in my mind. Nothing's changed. I'm still in the same pot of beans. There's literally nothing different other than 24 hours maybe. And so it's really like that. So it just to study. You can't. It doesn't do any good just to take this little bit and think you can make any progress with it. You've got to get a really valid text. Or if you can get, somebody like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, in his teachings. But you've got to get something that you can study. Because if you can't meditate without having something to meditate on. You can't just sit there and pull stuff out of the sky. It's got to be. I mean, I discovered, a friend of mine sent me a volume. Geshe Tsultim Rinpoche, who passed away a few years ago. He taught this Lama Tsongkhapa's Lama Rinpoche over like 20 years, every Sunday. And all the transcription of his teachings is this massive 5-volume set of, covering the entire Lama Rim. And the 5th volume is on insight or wisdom. And it's like 600 pages long. And a friend of mine gave it to me, I think 5 years ago. And I read it every morning. I read like three pages. I'm on I'm not sure, my 3rd or 4th time through it. And until I die, I'll be doing the same thing. It's so elusive because of our habitual way of thinking. It's so elusive to really be able to pinpoint they call it the object of refutation. Like what we're trying to understand does not exist because it's so subtle. Because if going further aside, if you take too much away, then we fall in what's called nihilism, the idea that nothing exists. And then that can mean there's no moral authority. It doesn't make any difference if I kill, steal, lie, cheat, sexual misconduct. It wouldn't be sexual misconduct then. It's just, it doesn't make any difference what I do. It doesn't have there's no effect from it. Whereas the other side of that is thinking that things exist permanently, immune to change and things like that. And so we call this the middle way, which is a balance between those two. And you can start out being at a gross level. It's easy to see the balance, but as you get more refined and more technical, it gets a very, very fine line. And this is why this education these monks get in the monasteries, it's a really complete education, so they're able to really understand where that fine line is between these two, so they stay right where they need to be and don't fall either permanence or nihilism like that. And so, anyway, to get a proper text and realize that you're not going to sit down and have a cup of tea and read it and put it back on the bookshelf, and that's good enough. You really have to, like Rinpoche said, I'm not a scholar. I have a dull mind. I have to really work hard to understand things. I just can't, I know a lot of people who can pick up something and look at this and got it, and I pick it up and I go, what? And so I have to go back and do it again and again and again and again. And so anyway, we have to have a good text. There are many good Lama Rim texts, and you have to have those to start with perfect human rebirth and death and impermanence. The whole Lama Rim, we've got to have something to study. So when we go to sit on our cushion and meditate, we know what we're going to look at, what we're going to examine. What we're trying to find out is this true or not? There's, this historical figure 2,600 years ago or something, is he just, what? Is this true or not? And then we can discover for ourselves whether that is true. This is the Buddha encourages us to do. Is you don't. It's just his view of how things are, and we're not. We shouldn't buy into it. We can, and once we have develop a lot of faith and confidence in that, but in the beginning, especially, to just what, prove it, and really examine it and find out the reasons for it, and then it grows. Question? Yes, please.
First of all, thank you
Uh,
for all those hours of meditation. Helped us out in some way or the other. My question to you is, have you ever been tested by the master? And what was it like for you?
Oh, well, every day. No, okay. Well, when we first got to Washington, like I said, I aligned with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and it was just Holly and Roger and Rinpoche and myself, I think, on Kunsang. And so Rinpoche has all these practices he does for, the offering practices he does at night for protectors and different spirits and things like this. And so I was helping him with this, and I'm thinking, I'm really cool. I get to do this. He comes back a year later, and well, anyway, I had to make this addition to the house. I had a mud room and a 2-story addition with a garage and workshop, and then an apartment above. Rinpoche arrives, he says hello. He's there 6 weeks. He never says another word to me for 6 weeks. He would take, I had all these projects, and Tenzin would stay up with him at night, the second visit. He would write notes to me, and in the morning, Tenzin would give me the notes, but Rinpoche never spoke to me, and it was like, I'm just, what did I do? What happened? And the whole point of this is, the Guru's job is to destroy our ego. I mean, our ego is what is between us and enlightenment. And so his job is to destroy that. And fortunately, my gurus are very gentle with me, I mean, Milarepa had a whole other thing to deal with. But it's, the test is, it happens often, but it's not so obvious other than you get this, what was that? Something. It's but I've never had them like we sit down and have a conversation about this, you know that sort of thing. It's always much more subtle, but many times.
I just had Venerable Yarphel, when you asked me to bring the stand, I didn't know what it was for. I mean, so I thought that was some kind of test. You're testing me
No,
to see the purity of the stand.
No.
Actually, I washed it.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's very nice. Yeah.
I put it in a big pot and made a fire to really dry that, so that you don't get dirt in your hand.
Yeah. Thank you.
That is relating to the question that you had. In fact, in my mind, I was thinking like it's some kind of test.
No.
Actually, he didn't say anything about the kind of what it was for.
Yeah. No, yes, it was just, like I say, from my experience at the beach, that somehow having this handful of all these granules of sand and seeing this vast number that had some impact on my mind. That's all. I've never done it before. I just thought I wanted to try it. Yeah, the sand's wonderful. I thought maybe I'd be bringing my cigars or something. Nice to put them. Just sit. No. Oh, I'm sorry I was so mysterious. I wasn't trying to be. when I first met Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa in 1977, in a place called Yucca Valley in California. There was like this sort of famous retreat for those of us who were there and knew about it. It's like 150 of us spent 1 month, 2 weeks of Lama Zopa Rinpoche giving Lam-Rim, and then 2 weeks of Lama Yeshe doing a Vajrapani yoga teaching. And from that, this land was offered up in the Santa Cruz Mountains in Northern California. And we had, anyway, we had sold our house in Santa Barbara, and I had this stash of cash, and I thought, well, we could go up there and offer a year and help build this retreat center. And so this is buying the teepee and going up there, and the year turned into 20 years for me. My ex-wife and best friend has been there for 45 years. Our year wasn't a year. But we have I wanted just to give an example of what it means to try to practice. I mean, the most important thing for us is to develop a good heart, to care for each other, and have us, like His Holiness says, a sense of responsibility that we have something here. And so from that group of 150 people from mostly from all over America, but we gathered maybe 20 of us. We originally started building Vajrapani, and no, second. There's a second. Anyway, we became very close. I mean, we lived in incredibly primitive conditions. I mean, the road into the land was a couple of miles long, and it was an old logging road. And in the wintertime, there'd be so much water underneath the road that the mud on top would be like would be like waves. That would be floating on the water underneath it. And I had a Volkswagen bus at the time, and having to stop and put chains on it to be able to drive in the mud, and living in a teepee in rain. And I mean, it was unbelievable conditions, but we all had this experience together, and we got so incredibly close. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And so today, out of the community from Yucca Valley, there's probably about 40 people who live in and around the Santa Cruz area. And we're all still, it's closer than, I'm closer to them than I'm in my whatever family I've got. I mean, it's just quite amazing the activities we've engaged in over these last 40 years. And so when I came on this trip, one of my brothers, Richard, gave me different monies to offer for some of our gurus, and he gave me $200 to offer for the stupa in Boda. And I'm trying to figure out what can I do with this $200. And one friend came down to Boda with me, and she showed me the offering room the Lama Zopa Rinpoche sponsors there on the east side of the stupa on the second floor. And I got this idea that Richard could buy a butter lamp. And she showed me this silver shop just quite close to it. And so I went in there the next day, and I found a butter lamp this big, beautiful, all out of silver. And it came to $272. And I thought, wow. I was really inspired by what I'd found to offer with Richard's $200. And I said, well, I'll pay the other $72. I was really happy. I didn't buy it then. I just had it in my mind that's what I was going to do, because I wanted to offer it next Tuesday is Labab Duchen, which is one of the 4 holy days for Buddhists, and the merit for offerings expands exponentially, sort of. So I went back to my room, and I had this thought, well, I bet some of my other friends might like to offer something here and take part in this. This is incredible, because we're offering for Lama Zopa, His Holiness, and one of my other gurus, Tonasket, for their long lives and success of all their wishes without any, quickly and without any interferences. So I sent an email to like 20 of my friends. 3 days later, I had $4,100. And this is this community for all these years. Some of them are incredible practitioners, but how this love of taking part and being together and creating merit, creating this thing, and how the spontaneous, wow, I would like to do that. And I mean, it just $200, $300, it just came in. And so yesterday I go down to the shop and trying to figure out, because they sell the silver by weight. They got a thing. So I went in and I said, I've got about 500,000 rupees now. And he looked around, he pulls this one down off the thing, puts it on the scale, and he says it's 540,000 rupees divided by 130. It's $2 more than I've been offered from all my friends. And just like a little bit too much, So it's, anyway, the encouragement is to continue this practice of loving kindness. The community you'll create and enjoy and prosper and progress in is nothing like it. I mean, this trip, when I originally heard the Lama Zopa Rinpoche was going to teach every day at the Kopan course, and so after the 2018 course, I was going to stay in retreat until Rinpoche did another major teaching. And suddenly I think, teaching every day for a month, that sounds good. So I booked a flight. I have no idea I'm going to pay for it. I'm talking to a friend of mine in Southern California. His name is Dorn Harper. And I say, well, I'm going to go to the course. And his first words out of his mouth was, well, I want to pay for your flight and pay for a hotel for you. I mean, just immediately, without no sense of anything, And so then I booked my thing at Kopan. A week later, I get an email from my friend who's going to stay in my cabin, John McKay. He says, hey, let's go to Kopan together. I'll pay for it. Well, when the signing up for the course happened, I got in, and John was looking for his sister's phone number and missed. So he's going there, and he said, doesn't matter. I'm going to pay for your entire stay there. So I just can't tell you how valuable this practice of loving kindness and compassion is. You can't hide from the benefits. You just can't hide from them. And so the one thing I wanted to say before we finish is that Kopan Rinpoche, this great master from the 20th century, was a guru of many of our gurus, or the gurus, some of our other gurus. But anyway, he said meditation is not nearly so important as the accumulation of merit and purification, because the realizations from meditation, the understandings, are blocked by our habits of attachment and all this accumulation of stuff that obstructs us from seeing things clearly. And so to take part in things or find ways to create merit. I mean, there's all of these, in the law, remember, there's a list of 6 different things. I'm not gonna, you can see these, but, and also the purification, to do prostrations, to do, I mean, all these things to do. The line between purification and merit, there's really not much line, because you're trading one for the other, sort of thing. And to just, like in retreat, I make sure that every day I do some of both. I mean, I'm reading sutras every day. There's the Sangha Sutra and the Golden Light Sutra and the Diamond Cutter. I read a few pages every day. Till I finish one, I do the next one, and I go back and start this one. So just a few minutes every day to create this merit. It keeps the energy, the positive energy going, and then to do prostrations or just any number of things, especially Vajrasattva meditation and mantras, anything like this to purify, and to do it all with this idea of bodhicitta meditation to benefit others. And progress will come. Like said Susie Albright, Pama Wangwa, says it takes a long time. It's very slow. When we did our first retreat at Vajrapani in 1978, used my teepee for the Gompa, and we're staying in these things, and it rained for 6 days. It was just miserable. Anyway, but I was sleeping in a friend's cabin because my place was being used for the Gompa. It was Chuck Thomas's little place. And I had this dream one night, because when I got that first Dharma book in 1973, so I read this stuff, I said, man, I've got this. I understand this. It won't be any time at all, and you're looking at the next Buddha, So I got, one night I had this dream. And in the dream was His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who I'd never met before at that time. And he's holding my hands and he's looking at me, and he says, what you need to understand is the path to enlightenment is long and arduous. And it really and it's true. There's just one of those really, fortuitous dreams that it is. It takes lifetimes. And so the only place to begin is where we are at right now. The idea that this person's been practicing for all these years and certainly must be more advanced than I am is not true. We all come to this life with our own whatever I just did. I'm sorry. Well, anyway, I get excited when this happens. Anyway, we all come with our own history of all these beginnings lives, of who knows what kind of practitioner we were in previous life, and like that. And so someone can come into this life and seemingly have very little background and attain incredible realizations in a very short time. This is like Geshe Lama Kuncho. He was an incredible practitioner for who knows how many lifetimes that enabled him in this life to practice like he did and become an enlightened being. It looks like one life, but there's many lives to prepare for this life. The same with Milarepa. So we can't know. So you can't, think that someone, like looking at me as an example, saying, well, surely he must have been far more advanced than I am, and like this because of this. And it's not true. We don't know. We can't know that way. If you had some clairvoyance, it's possible to be able to make a judgment like that, but we don't. And so should never put ourselves down or to think that we're not capable. We don't know. And I have many people I've met, brand new to the Dharma, they sit down and start meditating, and suddenly they're having visions, and I'm just like, just a minute, time out. This isn't quite fair, But it's true. And I have one friend in Washington. He's not a Buddhist. He's been a Native American practitioner for like 30 years. He married a Lakota Sioux woman and children and lived there. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Sundance. Anyway, the Sundance is where they do there's a week of preparation. They take a cottonwood tree, they cut a branch off that's got a thing like this, and it goes like this, and it's maybe 20 feet tall. And they wrap it here, and they put prayers up in it. And they spend 4 days dancing and praying around it. No food, no water, They can sit down and rest, but no food and no water for 4 days. And the fourth day, they get their skin pierced right here. And they tie rawhide through here, and it goes to a yoke, and it goes up to the tree. And then they start going back, leaning back against that, going around the tree until the rawhide breaks or this breaks. And it's a visionary ceremony. I mean, the people, they get visions from this. So Gary has done this 7 times. You know, his mother-in-law was his teacher. And so he did this 7 times. So Gary's wife has become a Buddhist, and they go to Seattle to see Garchen Rinpoche. And Garchen Rinpoche is giving an Amitayas initiation. It's the long life deity initiation. And Gary's there, but he's basically standing underneath the stairs at the back of the Gompa. He's there because Sue's there, but he's really not. He's trying not to be there. And so Garchen Rinpoche goes out and sees Gary and says hello to him and leaves. So Gary that night has a dream of the entire Amitayas mandala with all the goddesses and everything. You know, and I'm sitting there, he's telling me about what he this, and all I want to do is, I don't want to hear this. You know, it's incredible. It's just like this spiritual purification. It's not, you have to be a Buddhist or this. It's this dedication to love and compassion and caring for each other. You know, that it's, we all have different paths, but there's something similar, although there are differences. We're not doing the same thing. But anyway, it's just this idea that don't do anything to keep yourself down. Just really, find some sources to study. I mean, there's thousands of good Dharma books. Get a good Lama Rim book. You can get, Shanti Deva's books. And I mean, there's just so many things. And just study and meditate. The meditation can be just 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there. And then as you get comfortable and more opportunity, I mean, you can't go from being a beginner to doing what I'm doing. It's you'd be running off in the hills screaming, It takes gradual, slowly, a little more. When I started, I couldn't sit for 10 minutes before my knees were moving, and now I can sit for hours and hours, and like 12 hours a day or something now, and it's just nothing. And it's completely my most comfortable way to sit. So it just takes your body and mind become more comfortable as you go, and then slowly, you start slowly, group retreats, and then they start trying out solitary retreats, and they just start growing, and then pretty soon you can do, And I'm not saying that what I'm doing is special. I'm just saying it takes, you got to get in shape for it. Okay. Just, anyway, thank you all very much.
Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied?
Yes. I can't get no satisfaction.
Yes. Personally,
Thank you. Thank you.
And yeah, so I have to thank my wife. So we're still learning. We're just learning.
Thank you.
Don't obscure Venerable Geshe. Like you can see to the sides.
Well, there's that bottle that has to be filled with buddy.
Hmm? Oh, we're brothers and sisters. This has nothing to do with this, please.
So can people really gather around?
Can I just stay right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, you stay there. Don't you dare move.
You can take that away.
No.
Don't you dare move. Yeah. Remove this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if you can gather around.
This here?
Would you like to hold bucket stand? Yes, give us the bucket stand. Give us the bucket stand. This is how many disciples you should have in the future. Okay, everybody. So, Bodhicitta. 1, 2, 3. And again.
Let me take. Got the land?
It works every time. Bucket of sand.
I'm learning for the teacher. No, did you come out right? We were laughing. We came out.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You.
I'm sorry I couldn't find it.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
We'll see.